Okay, so I need to say this because a lot of people genuinely don't know. And honestly, I didn't either for a long time. Native Americans were enslaved. They were captured, they were forced into labor, and in many cases shipped far away from their homelands. But, and this part matters, it was not the same system as African chattel slavery. Different logic, different structure, different end goal. Still violent, still dehumanizing, just built for a different purpose. So let me explain. In the early days of colonization, the 1500s, 1600s, native enslavement was actually more common than African slavery in some regions. Colonizers captured people after raids, wars, or outright kidnappings and forced them to work in households, plantations, mines, construction. And here's the part people really don't know. Native people were shipped away. Not just moved down the road, but shipped out of their territory entirely, to the Caribbean, to other colonies, anywhere far enough that they couldn't return home. That was the point, though. Break resistance, erase connection to land, destroy tribal continuity. But here's where it diverges from chattel slavery. Native enslavement wasn't race-based for life in the same way. It wasn't a fully codified hereditary system where your status automatically passed down to your children. Blackness itself was the justification. People were legally defined as permanent property. African chattel slavery in America was built to be total, inheritable, and endless. Native enslavement was more about removal and control. Colonizers wanted land without the people, weakened nations, fewer organized communities to fight back, which is why native slavery often followed warfare. Another key difference is that native people knew the land because it's their land. They escaped more often, they resisted differently. They could disappear in ways that enslaved Africans couldn't, because Africans were deliberately stripped of their language, their kinship, and geography. So colonizers decided that native slavery was harder to control, less profitable, and more dangerous. And that's when African chattel slavery expanded aggressively. Not because native people were treated better, but because African enslavement was easier to institutionalize. And even when native slavery declined, the coercion didn't. Indigenous people were still forced into labor contracts, imprisoned and leased out, had children taken into domestic servitude, sent to boarding schools that functioned like labor camps. Different names, same goal. So I want to be really clear here. Native Americans weren't enslaved in the same way as Africans, but they were enslaved, they were sold, they were shipped away. And that history gets erased because it doesn't fit the simplified version that people were taught. And when you erase that, you erase how intentional colonization really was. But once you understand it, a lot of American history starts making more sense. Land theft, broken treaties, forced removals, why survival itself was framed as resistance, because it always was. Knowing the difference doesn't lessen the harm. It actually tells the truth.